Hello and welcome to another episode of the Meeples Miniatures Miniature Review Show. Today we're looking at an army box set from Warlord Games. This is part of their Ancient Armies range, and this is their Imperial Roman Auxiliary. Now this is obviously following on from their previous Legionnaires box sets, filling out their Roman army range. So without further ado, let's have a look what you get in the box. So you open the box up and you see you get 6 sprues plus a set of slide transfers. Now all the sprues are exactly the same, so I'll take a closer look at what you get. And here you see on each sprue you get a set of 4 bodies. That's 4 different poses, 5 heads, 4 shields, pilums and swords as well. Now the immediate thing to note when looking at this sprue, as opposed to looking at the sprues we looked at previously from Wargames Factory, is actually the lack of multi-pose on these particular sprues. Other than the fact that you have a choice of an extra head, effectively you can swap a couple of arms around, so you put the arms on different bodies, but the way that the bodies are basically been designed, the figures are designed to go together in a certain way. So certain bodies with certain arms, you're always going to get 3 men armed with pilums, 1 man armed with a sword. So let's take a closer look at a couple of the items on the sprue. First of all, if you're looking at the heads, you get 4 normal heads, each actually with a different expression, plus you've got a guy, second from the left, who has a bandage over one eye. The thing immediately to note, as far as these heads are concerned, is that the actual detail and sculpting of the heads is actually quite deep in set. It's very reminiscent of metal sculpting. So the features are quite exaggerated, much, for want of a better phrase, harder than what we've seen on the Wargames Factory, which had a bit more of a softer take on it. They weren't quite as sharp, weren't quite as deep in set. So these really do look like plastic versions of metal miniatures. Similarly, as we start coming on and having a look at the details of the actual figures themselves, you'll see that these are quite highly detailed actually. They're all wearing chainmail, yet the problem we've seen before as far as the sharp edges are concerned when it came down to something I was picking up on from the Wargames Factory stuff isn't anywhere near as apparent here. The edges where the cloth hits the skin of the leg just seems to be sharper, so it makes life a little bit easier as far as coming to painting. The detailing is just that little bit better. So if you get right close up on a particular model, as I say, I don't know what the difference is between the process that Warlord are using in comparison with Wargames Factory, but to my mind, from simply what I see here, the detailing that the Warlord figures have are better than what's on Wargames Factory, from what I've seen so far anyway of their ranges. And for want of a better phrase, they look better models. And the same is apparent when you actually come to put the models together. Now here are 2 completed models. Apologies for the slight problems in lighting there, so they're a little bit out of focus. But so here are 2 completed models, and here are my thoughts really on the differences. First of all, just as far as the models are concerned, take a look at the feet. Pods we saw with very soft and the feet flowing into the bases that we saw with both the Zulus and to a lesser extent with the Numidians. We don't have this problem here with the Warlord stuff. Also the feet actually look better. But the biggest difference I found is actually putting the figures together themselves. The surfaces that you've got to glue the arms to and the heads to are much bigger. Just take a look at this particular body, you'll see a huge surface to actually connect the arm to. Now some of that is simply to do with the fact that the way the model is, the fact that you've got this big chainmail piece that you can use. But it's the same with the head. There's a very large flat surface on both sides that you can glue to, and that makes a big difference when you're putting the model together. And these are an awful lot easier to put together than the previous Wargames Factory figures. It also means that the joint's stronger. I described earlier when we had a problem and I dropped Wargames Factory Numidians. These were them as well. I dropped the whole lot. All the Wargames Factory figures broke apart. And that didn't happen with the Warlord figures. And again, part of that is simply because the strength of the bond is there, because you've got a much bigger surface area that you're bonding to. And the other thing as well are the shields. If you look back at the way that the figures are designed, you'll see that the one hand is set in a fist And all the shields have an indentation behind the shield boss. Basically, that's where you glue your hand. You physically glue that piece into the hand. It effectively acts as a peg into a hole. So the shields become an awful lot easier to glue on, and again, they become much more stable, much more secure. So therefore, they're probably easier to put together for somebody new to using plastic figures, maybe even somebody new to the hobby, and altogether a little bit more user-friendly. Having said that, the range of options for posing is much more limited. So effectively you've got just 4 poses available with slightly different head swaps, potentially a couple of different arm locations, depending if you use different sets of arms with different bodies. But on the whole, you've essentially got 6 sprues. Each sprue produces 4 figures. You end up with 6 figures that look essentially the same, or at least very, very similar. Yeah, you can swap the odd shield around or what have you, but that's basically it. Now, as a nice touch, this box set also comes with a set of shield transfers, which I think is a nice little extra, and they will just add that finishing touch to the model. So, a price point, this box set you'll find generally retails for around about £15, and that's for 24 figures. So, slightly more expensive than some of their equivalents, and there's certainly a trade-off between versatility and detail here. So definitely on the more expensive side when it comes down to the actual plastic figures. You know, you're paying more than 50p a figure, and I think has been previously noted with the Legionnaires box set, if you're looking to closely rank up this particular unit, especially with the amount of figures you've got lunging forward with swords and spears, you're probably going to find it potentially a little bit awkward to rank up past 1 or 2 ranks. So whilst this is a nice set, it definitely has pros and a few cons to it as well. You know, it's not all roses. But overall, I think this is a really good set of figures. It's one of the best plastic sets I've seen so far, and altogether I'd certainly be pretty pleased with them. They're certainly a lot less labour intensive to put together than the Wargames factory stuff we'd looked at previously, for example. But again, as I say, you have this trade-off between ease of construction and versatility in this particular case. So these are available from most of your major miniature stockists actually. You can get them direct from Warlord Games, but it's also nice to note that these are getting quite a large distribution throughout the country. You know, I've even seen these in my local toy shop, which is very pleasing. Which I suppose just goes to show the appeal of plastic box sets. So I think these are definitely worth a look. That's all I've got time for on this show. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it and found it useful. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.